Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the movie Black Widow. Fun fact, in the comic books, Black Widow is given a version of the super soldier serum, which is something like Captain America has, but hers is not as intense. So she is able to live longer and has increased strength, as well as she's a super spy. This movie came out in 2021 and stars Scarlett Johannson, Florence Pugh, and David Harbour, and was directed by Cate Shortland. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Black Widow tells a story of how, after the event of Captain America Civil War, Natasha Romanoff is a fugitive and on the run. Soon, her past catches up to her and she is forced to face it. Now she must reunite with her family and fight this familiar foe and come to terms with her past. The cast of this movie is just amazing. Scarlett Johansson was in Jojo Rabbit, Florence Pugh was in Midsummer, Rachel Weisz was in The Mummy, David Harbour was in Stranger Things, O.T. Faggenbell was in Handmaid's Tale, and Cate Shortland also directed Berlin Syndrome. Black Widow is a movie filled with lots of action and some humor. If you like movies like Captain America, The Winter Soldier, or actually any Marvel movie, then you'll like Black Widow. This is an origin story, but it's also wrapping up the Black Widow story considering that she met her end in Avengers Endgame. I was glad that we got to see a little bit more about where she was from and her family before the Avengers. And it was nice to see, especially where she went after Civil War, because that was just kind of a confusing part is that she left, but we never knew what happened in between Civil War and Avengers Infinity War with her. And so it was nice that this movie decided to focus on that while also showing us about her past. I love how this film not only had a new story, but there were some callbacks that you may have noticed throughout the film that call back other instances of when Black Widow has been in a movie. I thought it was great for them to include this because Black Widow has been in the MCU since Iron Man 2. So there's a lot of content that wraps or revolves around her. And so it's nice to see that they haven't forgotten that and they still chose to include some little small hints in there for viewers who have seen all the other movies and remember a lot about the character. One of my favorite callbacks was actually the vest that Natasha wears in Infinity War, which was given to her by Yelena. In this movie, we see that Yelena actually bought that vest as a symbol of her freedom because it was the first thing that she was able to purchase like as her own once getting freed of the Black Widow programming. And I love that she gave it to Natasha in the end. And Natasha decided to wear it as like a symbol of like, she still cared for Yelena and she wore this vest as like a symbol of like her family that she's not with. I thought Scarlett Johansson did a great job reprising her role as Natasha Romanoff in this movie. I love how she's so great at manipulating people to get what she wants. And if there is a fight that breaks out, she can also handle her own. I thought that David Harbour did a great job as the Red Guardian. I thought he was funny throughout the movie, and I thought it was crazy how he really held on to this notion that they were a family, even though he left Natasha and Yelena after their mission was done. I really hope that we get to see more of him, and I would love to see him either fight Captain America or fight another super soldier because he was talking so much about fighting Captain America. And so it would be great to actually see that happen on screen and see, or learn a little bit more about his past to see if he actually encountered Captain America in the past. I thought Rachel Weisz did great as Melina in this movie. She was smart but also deadly, and I would love to see her come back in future movies. There was a part in this movie where I really thought that she betrayed her family, but then she decided to prove me wrong when she was actually helping them. I think it would be great to see her return in a capacity of helping, Florence Pugh's Yelena figure out how to undo all of the Black Widow programming and maybe helping some of the other Black Widows assimilate into like a normal life. Florence Pugh as Yelena was my favorite character in this movie. I felt that she elevated every scene that she was in. I thought that Florence Pugh and Scarlett Johannson had great chemistry playing these sisters, and it really felt like, that they were related. They were arguing with each other, but they were always fighting side by side. I think Florence Pugh is a great addition to the MCU, and I really look forward to her future in different movies and see what she brings to, more of the MCU. At the end, we see how Valentina tasked her with killing Hawkeye because she says that Hawkeye is the one that killed Yelena's sister, Natasha. I can't wait to see a Yelena versus Hawkeye battle. I think that that's going to be so intense, and I just am really excited to see them come face to face and see kind of how that situation is going to go down. I'm really excited for Yelena to be the new Black Widow in future MCU projects, and I'm excited to see what she brings to the role. I feel like Yelena's Black Widow, if she ends up taking the mantle, is going to be different from Natasha's, considering that she already has more blood on her hands than Natasha does. It's going to be interesting to see kind of what changes they make if, they decide to give her that mantle, considering that Natasha's Black Widow was, revolved around the male gaze a lot more, and I don't think Yelena's would if she took up that mantle. I'm really excited to see what the future of Black Widow is, and hopefully Yelena will take up that and still, be influenced by Natasha's time as Black Widow. Also, I love Valentina already in the small parts that we've already seen her in. She was originally supposed to make her first cameo in this movie, but due to COVID and the schedule being moved around, she ended up making her first cameo in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I am really looking forward to see what she is actually planning on doing because as of right now, it looks like she's making an Avengers team, but she's making an Avengers team filled with people who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. Because right now she has Yelena, a former recent Black Widow, as well as U.S. agent who is still kind of a psycho. Taskmaster was an intense foe, and I thought that their skills were really great. They have like this copycat type skill where they see something done and then they can do it themselves. And I thought that that was a really cool skill to show because Natasha is known for her fighting skills, but here comes Taskmaster who is able to copy that and just give it right back to her. I thought that Taskmaster was a great villain, but I felt towards the end of the movie that they were, forgetting about their storyline a little bit and just kind of went with this, oh, they were, mind controlled as well. I would have loved to see them remain more of the main villain, or, even if they are a side villain, someone who wasn't being controlled and had like ulterior motives, and maybe someone who in the end was going to hunt down, these Black Widows or trying to stop, Yelena and Melina and the Red Guardian. So, I definitely thought that Taskmaster would have been great if, towards the end of the movie, they, really kept up with the story, but it seemed like the story just with Taskmaster just kind of like died down. The first scene where Taskmaster attacked Natasha caught me completely off guard. Like Natasha was just driving, vibing out to cheap thrills, and she was just enjoying her time alone, and then all of a sudden Taskmaster comes. This scene scared me a little bit because I was not expecting like anything to happen in this moment, and then bam, there was Taskmaster. The fight scenes in this movie were great. There were a lot throughout the movies which really enforced for the viewers that these spies were well trained, and when it came to the time where they needed to take action, they would, and you would be in trouble if you were in their way. It was cool to see this family of spies and how they worked together to take out this evil corporation. We've always known about Natasha's Avengers family, but it's nice to see her family before the Avengers and seeing how much they influenced her. I love how Natasha always has a plan before going into a situation. Towards the end of the film, I really thought that she was screwed, and come to find out, she had the whole plan lined up, down to small points that I didn't even think that she would be able to catch, but she caught them, and she was completely prepared for her final showdown. I thought that the white suits that Natasha and Yelena wore while breaking out their dad were pretty badass. Throughout most of the films that we've seen Black Widow in, she's always wearing like a black or like a dark gray color. And it was nice to see her switch up from this and have a white suit. I thought that that was just really cool. And that scene, it like fit so well with them being in the mountains and rescuing their dad. And it just was very heroic. And I love that change of costume in that moment. I thought it was cool how they showed that there were widows all over the world, even though people didn't even know it. I can't wait to see what their plan is to try to deactivate all of these active widows. But I also want to know, is someone going to try to fill the void that was left by Dreykov? I enjoyed how in the beginning of the film, there were these historical photos being shown, which really enforced that the widows had such a wide reach and people didn't even know. I thought it was really cool to see how the widows have been moving in secrecy and have been influencing some big events that have gone on in the world. I also thought that during this, intro, there was a very cool cover of Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana playing, which I thought was perfect for this scene. I would have loved to see a funeral happen for Natasha. Like, I love that we got to see Yelena visiting her grave, but it would have been nice to see all of the Avengers be there as well. I thought it was nice that, it looks like her gravestone is in Ohio, which has, some significance to her. But I would have loved to see the Avengers come because, yes, Yelena and Melina and the Red Guardian were her family before the Avengers, but the Avengers were still her family, and we know that they still cared about her, and it would have been nice to see them there as well. Budapest has been talked about since the first Avengers film between Natasha and Clint. And it's always been this running theme between the two about how each of them remember it a little bit differently. In this film, we finally get to figure out what actually happened in Budapest. When it came to this explanation, I was a little disappointed because the way that it's brought up so much in other MCU films makes it seem like it was some giant war that was going on or like some type of battle. But in this movie, we find out it was a building explosion, which, yes, is tragic, but then basically they just hid out for a couple of days while the heat, was on them. I thought that, for something that was built up for so long, that it would have been something a lot more dramatic compared to them just like doing this job, blowing up a building, and then like her walking away from like the widow life. My favorite part of this movie is when Yelena makes fun of Natasha's pose. I thought it was sweet because it showed that she was paying attention to Natasha, but also was, talking about how unrealistic it is. To top it off, there's a scene in which Yelena jumps down and tries to pose herself, and then she says ew and like walks off because she knows how unrealistic it is and how it's just a pose that makes no sense when you're in the middle of a battle. Black Widow gives us some closure to the storyline of Natasha Romanoff. We see where she comes from and why she's the way that she is. This movie is a heartfelt send off to a beloved character. If you have not seen Black Widow, I suggest that you go and see it now. Thank you for watching my video. I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. If you have not subscribed, please do so you can keep up to date with more of my videos. But besides that, everyone stay safe, have fun, and
thank you for your cooperation.
bye.